Alright guys, so I'm gonna try not to have too many PTSD flashbacks as I tell you about this movie. I just got done watching through the Avatar movie, not the new show, but the old movie that came out back in like 2011 I think. And I heard that this movie was bad, but after watching it, I think this might be one of the worst movies I ever saw. I know each video begins with me saying that I just saw the worst movie I ever saw in my life, but it's true. It's true. They're just progressively getting more and more terrible. I'm getting like progressively overloaded with just shitty movies. But like I said, I heard this movie was really bad, so I wanted to watch it to see just how bad it was, and I was completely blown away. Everything that I don't like about movies is in this movie. Everything from the worst exposition I've ever seen in my entire life.
As you know, I conducted a raid on the Great Library, which...
As you know... I actually conducted a great raid, and I'm telling you this even though you already know.
Yeah, as you know already, I conducted a raid on the Great Library, which most said didn't even exist.
Horrible acting.
You think my son is this person the soldiers are calling the Blue Spirit?
Yes.
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 You'd think he would say, like, I'm sure of it. You know, he just says, like, yes.
And the most punchable face I ever saw.
I just don't like his fucking face, man. I just don't like it, bro. I know he's supposed to be a kid, but I just don't like his fucking face.
His face is an oval. He has like no jaw.
It's so shit.
This movie was directed by M. Night Shyamalan and is based off of the animated series of the same name. This is one of those cartoons that gets better the older you get, because the older you become, the more you understand the show. It's a show that on the surface level seems like some basic cartoon about people that have superpowers where they can control fire and stuff. But when you get older and actually watch it, it's a really crazy story with multiple arcs. There's so much character development, and things get really serious and dark at times. Some characters die in brutal ways. Some people turn evil, and some evil people turn good and find redemption. It's just honestly a really good story. And there's a reason why people keep trying to adapt this show into things. Pretty sure that if you're watching this video, you have a basic understanding of what the show was about. But the premise is basically that there's 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. And there's certain people who are called benders who can manipulate these elements. Like a firebender would be able to shoot fire out of his hands, for example, and be able to control fire and manipulate it. So societies and nations formed around each of these elements and their benders. And there's a lot of conflict and drama, and they have wars with each other. But there's this person who's called the Avatar that can control all 4 elements. And he's supposed to bring peace and unity between all of the nations, so that they don't war and destroy each other. And they're basically this overpowered superhero that can do things like go to this other realm called the spirit world and talk to gods and things. So in the show, the plot was basically that the Fire Nation became way more advanced than all of the other nations. So the Fire Nation just started growing more and more powerful and becoming more technologically advanced than the other nations, and controlled the entire world. Now the thing about the Avatar is that they reincarnate and are born again every 100 years. You can predict what element of bender they're going to be born as next time. And last time it was a firebender and he died, so that means the next one would be an airbender. So what the Fire Nation did was went to all of the air nations and just killed all of them. So airbenders are just completely extinct. So then there's this one kid named Aang that happened to have run away from his home after he was told that he was the Avatar because he didn't want to accept it. And during that time, he got lost and frozen into ice as the Fire Nation destroyed all of the air nations. So he wakes up 100 years later, and now he has to fulfill his duty as the Avatar to bring peace to all of the nations. But the thing is that he's just a kid who's like 12 years old, and he never got to learn any of the other elements, and he's just not even ready to. And that's the plot. He has to go around the world and learn all the other elements, and he meets all these crazy characters, and all this crazy shit happens, and he has to defeat the Fire Nation. That's the story. And when this was told to M. Night Shyamalan, he was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool, but nah, I'm good. Now, M. Night Shyamalan is actually a good director that's made some movies that I thought were really cool. Like, for example, Unbreakable and Split. And it just really makes you wonder, how can a director that's this good make a movie that's so bad? So after making these psychological thinking man's action thriller movies like that, it's a pretty crazy jump to go from making movies in that genre over to a blockbuster movie about The Last Airbender. So it's like, who asked this guy to do this? And the answer is nobody did. He took it upon upon himself. The story is that M. Night Shyamalan's kids were watching The Last Airbender, and he walked up to the screen and thought it was interesting and was like, all right, I'm gonna go make a movie about this. So he brought it to Paramount and pitched them the idea that he makes a 3-part trilogy covering the entire The Last Airbender series. And they were like, all right, we'll give you the funds to do it. Like, imagine you're just watching a show with your dad and he's like, okay, I guess I'll try now. And he gets up and then makes a shitty movie about the show that you like. Just imagine.
I had the creators come to my farm when I first made the outline. I said, okay, how about this? And then I spent like 40 minutes reading the outline, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then they just laughed at me and said, you're gonna have to cut something.
What's funny is that after this disaster of a movie, he went on to make After Earth, which is also a really bad movie that I really should talk about on the channel sometime. This guy made The Last Airbender and After Earth within like a 2-year span. Like, he just went rogue and just wanted to destroy the earth or something. But now that we know a little bit of history about the movie, now we can actually get started. So the movie opens with a text wall, and not like one of those eerie, interesting text walls like the one at the beginning of Blade Runner 2049. No, it's just a scrolling text wall like Star Wars. Except it's not Star Wars and has none of the charm that those text walls have. It's just text that scrolls over a completely black background while Katara just reads it off in case the audience doesn't know how to read or something. And it's like, dude, if you need to start your movie with a wall of text explaining the premise of it, then maybe you're doing something wrong, because you're not supposed to need to do that. And you could be like, well, the episodes of the show in the intro started off with a bunch of exposition explaining the premise as well. And it's like, yeah, you're right, they did, but those weren't a text wall over a black background. She was talking over a montage and graphics and images that kind of showed what she was talking about. We also have a little homage to the original show with the different benders standing in front of the red background and using their bending abilities. But this is where I want to first mention 2 themes that keep popping up throughout this movie. The first one being that for some reason the benders have to do so much to do so little. Like, the first 3 benders, all right, I mean, cool, you know, they're waving their arms around and moving the elements. But the last guy, the airbender, dude, this dude has to do like a 20 input Mortal Kombat combo to be able to just shoot 1 gust of air. And it's like, bro, is it actually worth it to do all that shit just to like basically like breathe on somebody? Like, he had to do like 8 backflips
Just to do this 1 gust of air? Bro, he did like such a long
Yeah, he didn't even need to flip around there.
for 1 air gust. Nigga, what?
And the other theme is characters pronouncing everyone's names wrong for some reason. For example, they don't call him the Avatar, they call him the Avatar. And they don't call him Aang, they call him Ang. For some reason, I don't know, I guess M. Night Shyamalan just wanted to be unique and quirky and different. But it's like, their names would be the same. It's telling the same story. Why change the names? It's not like you're giving them different names. You're just changing the pronunciation of the same name. It has no impact on the story or anything. And you might be like, oh, if it has no impact on the story, why do you care? But it's like, if it has no impact on the story, then why even change it? Just keep the names the same.
It could have been as bad as it is right now, and if they had just called him Aang once! Aang!
So the movie actually opens with Katara waterbending this little bubble of water, and she moves it across the air until she accidentally drops it and it falls on top of Sokka's head. And this is supposed to be like a cute little wholesome scene, but it doesn't really make any sense, because when the camera zooms out, you can see she could have just moved the water the other direction instead of directly over top of Sokka. But she had to, because like, oh my god, they have such a quirky brother-sister relationship, oh my god! Now, the first thing you might notice is that Sokka and Katara are white, when in the actual show they're not. And you might notice that all of the characters in this movie are the wrong race. But I did a little bit of looking into this, and I found out that there's an actual reason for it. It's because of this woman, Nicola Peltz, who is the actress that plays Katara. So her dad is named Nelson Peltz, and he's this billionaire businessman, and he like owns all of these companies and stuff. And apparently Paramount owed this guy a favor for some reason. They probably had like some business deal or something. So because of that, he wanted his daughter, Nicola Peltz, to be in the next movie that Paramount works on. And that happened to be the Last Airbender movie. So she was going to be in this movie no matter what, and she wanted to play Katara. But the problem is that she looks nothing like her at all. So what they did instead was change all of the waterbender's race to the same one as hers so that it makes sense. So that's why all of the waterbenders are the wrong race. So then after that happened, M. Night Shyamalan was like, okay, well, the races are already fucked up, so I'll just cast whoever else I want to play the characters, even if they don't look like them and are the wrong race or something, because it's already fucked up, so fuck it. After the movie came out, he was asked about this in an interview, but kind of just dodged the question and instead talks about how culturally diverse the movie is and how Noah Ringer was a good choice to play Aang and how there's a lot of different races of people in the movie. He just starts speaking his thoughts, I guess.
More specifically, why Caucasian actors are playing what in the original series were Inuit characters, and why Middle Eastern or Central Asian characters are playing the Fire Nation.
Right. You know, for me, this was an incredible opportunity to be culturally diverse and be organic at the same time. And so, you know, the thing about anime is that it's an art form that includes culturally ambiguous features. That's what they do. Big eyes, and sometimes blue eyes, and sometimes big, you know, Indian eyes, and everything is very, you know, interesting, sharp features in this. And it's meant to see yourself in it. That's the art form. And so all cultures see themselves in those faces. Noah Ringer is Aang. There's no one on the planet that's more like Aang. These are not coincidences. That is the art form. The art form is multicultural. You see it in their look, and that's how the art form was born. And the show borrows from, you know, Sanskrit word avatar. It borrows from Hinduism, from Buddhism. It has Japanese influences and Thai influences, and everything you can imagine. All the cultures mixed in. There's a million ethnicities in the tent table. In the tent where we were eating lunch, you just see was like United Nations, and it's one of the things I'm most proud about. It's like, yeah, obviously you don't want to say the actual reason why all of the casting and races of the characters got all screwed up, but he talks about how the movie is racially diverse and there's a lot of different races in his movie, which there really isn't. It's just all of the races are swapped. It's the same races, they're just switched around. So I don't know what he was rambling about, but at least I know now that the art form is multicultural, whatever the fuck that means. So I do have one question for you, Zero. Why did you change around all of the races of the characters in your movie? Yeah, so, you know, the art form is multicultural. You know, it's a diverse, multicultural collective. And at the end of the day, a penny saved is a penny earned. You know, it's not just practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And you got to ask yourself, is it one day or day one? Because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. One day when I was done watering my fish and I went outside to take my dad for a walk, a man told me that luck favors the prepared man. But I was in my tent table eating in there, and it was like the United Nations. So it's one of the things I'm very proud of. Well, alright guys, so he got this guy, Dev Patel, who looks absolutely nothing like Zuko at all to play as him, and casted this kid named Noah Ringer to play as Aang. Now, I actually feel kind of bad for this guy. This was the first movie that he had ever been in his life. He has no acting experience at all, and he was just casted because he would post videos of himself doing martial arts online, and M. Night Shyamalan thought it looked interesting, and then just put him as the main character for a trilogy of blockbuster action movies. Like, wow. Now, after the movie flopped and everyone hated it, I guess he just decided to become a hermit and just disappear and go live in a mountain somewhere, because you can't even really find any recent pictures of this guy. They're all from when he was a kid, and he has no social media or any kind of presence on the internet or anything. And the reason I feel a little bit bad is that this kid had no idea that the movie was going to flop this bad, and that his face would be forever attached to all of the anger and resentment that everybody had towards this movie. So, like, damn, bro. So Katara and Sokka are out here on this glacier in the middle of nowhere because they're hunting for animals, and they obviously cannot find anything. I wonder why. So they keep walking until they find this light that's growing. So then they get Sokka's boomerang and start cracking the ice to see what's underneath it, and obviously this makes the entire floor start to collapse and fall. So all the ice explodes and reveals this giant orb of ice that they also crack open, which sends them flying back like 100 feet, and they find Aang and Appa laying inside of it and decide to bring them back to their village. I have no idea how they brought Appa there. I guess they just put him in a wheelbarrow. I have no idea. But they get back to their village, and Aang wakes up and starts exposition dumping to Katara. And just like all of the other acting in this movie, it's super awkward and stiff and just makes me feel uncomfortable.
We got in a storm. We were forced under the water of the ocean.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't very smart. I was just upset. Thanks for saving me.
Lucky.
I probably should get home. Oh, I'll be worse.
You not so upset?
Not as much as I was.
The acting is like two goldfish that like just learned English trying to communicate with each other. And I don't even think it's just the acting. I think the writing is bad too. Like it's bad all the way down to the roots. Like what was M. Night Shyamalan doing here? What the characters are actually even saying sounds bad on its own. Because in their defense, it's like, how do you make this shit sound good? Like you're looking at the script and it says, I ran away from home. I was upset. Are you still upset? No. Like how are you supposed to turn that into anything that doesn't sound like two AIs trying to communicate with each other? So when Katara used Sokka's boomerang to crack open the giant ice orb, it shot this laser beam up into the sky for some reason. And that attracted the attention of Zuko, who was nearby, for some reason. So because of this beam of light, he somehow deduces that the Avatar must be in this random village in the middle of nowhere just hiding out. So he shows up to this village and it's like, give me all of your old people. So him and the rest of his soldiers raid the village looking for all of the old people when one of the soldiers stumbles across Aang, thinks his tattoos look a little bit weird, and then brings him outside to meet Zuko. And then this happens.
I'm taking you to my ship. If you don't come, I'll burn down this village.
I'll go with you. Don't hurt anyone.
Like, am I tripping? Like,
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay, that's pretty bad.
Am I tripping? I'm taking you to my ship. If you do not come, I will hurt these people.
Okay, I'll go with you. Just don't hurt these people.
So then Aang goes with Zuko onto the ship, while this guy firebends this fire above the people's heads for some reason. I guess to just be a dick and make them mad.
So
he does do all these like extended combos to like bend this tiny little fucking flame. When in the show, he would just like wave his hand and it would move. Here he has to do like this like Mortal Kombat like 20 input combo. Imagine if it was like an actual like fire, right?
Yeah.
Or would he have to just start doing like a line of backflips in a row, and then like would he have to just like start breakdancing?
So Aang gets taken away by Zuko onto his ship, and Katara tells Sokka that they should do something to try to save him. And Sokka is like, no, we barely know this guy. And then she says, well, what would you do if I got kidnapped? And he's like, well, I would go in there and kill them. And then she's like, exactly, so let's go save him. And he's like, all right, let's do it. This made sense in the original show because Aang had made such a good relationship with the village and its people. Like he would go sledding with the kids and play with them. He was friends with all of the kids and all of the elderly in the village. He went and explored the abandoned Fire Nation ship and told Sokka and Katara about it. And they became good friends in just a day or two. So in the original show, when he got taken away by Zuko and Katara said this to Sokka, it actually made sense there because they had made a relationship with him by then. But here, it's like, dude, you took him out of the ice ball, brought him back to your village, and he said, yeah, I ran away from home. And then you were like, oh, okay, cool. And he was like, yeah, but it's all better now. Then he gets kidnapped. So it just doesn't make any sense. It's like M. Night Shyamalan will copy things from the show, but out of context or something, and without knowing what the scene means at all. So Aang is brought into Zuko's ship when Iroh comes out, whose name is strangely pronounced Iro in this movie. Oh my god. And gives Aang a test. He puts a bunch of objects next to him to see if they're manipulated by his power, I guess.
If you
What do you want with me?
formulate a test on you.
That sounds so like. That
sounds so Diddy. Whoa, that's so weird.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh!
Certified level boy, certified.
Oh! He said, "Oh, I assure you, it won't hurt."
Nigga, what?
So Aang obviously passes this test because he's the Avatar, and upon seeing this, Zuko tells him that he's not going to let him leave now and that he's his prisoner. So Aang does this airbending move that throws him through the room and through the door, shutting it behind him. In the hallway outside of the room, he runs into some Fire Nation guards that pull out their swords and for some reason make the most generic sword pulling out sound effect I've ever heard.
Go back, play it again. Knife that MP3 sound effect. Let's do it.
Mirror.
Knife that MP3 sound effect. Did somebody in GTA San Andreas pull out a switchblade? Like, that's so bad.
He He goes, ching. Like,
It's so bad.
ching.
What is making it make that? Is he grinding it against a whetstone? What makes it make it so
The
bad?
sheath is like leather, right? So what the fuck is he cutting again?
It sounds so bad.
Now, what I find weird is Iro and Zuko don't chase after Aang. They can just open the door and just chase after him. But I guess they're just like, they don't want to, or they've already done enough cardio for today. Because it's not like the door is locked. He just swung it open and swung it shut again. And it's not like he's holding it shut either. They just don't feel like chasing after him. So Aang runs out onto the deck of the ship and then flies off with his little plane staff thing up to the top of an iceberg where Sokka and Katara are waiting for him. And then we get an amazing scene between the kid who has never been in a movie in his entire life, a girl who's only in this movie because the overarching company owed a favor to her billionaire businessman father, and a man that always looks so tense and constipated that I would probably believe you if you told me that he forgot to breathe the entire time they were filming this movie.
Dude, Sokka's face is always like he's uncomfortable and he has to shit. He always has to shit.
Yeah.
Look at his face, dude. The only facial expression he makes is that one. That's the only one he can make. The concerned face.
The concerned, worried face.
There's no comedic relief either. Everything is serious because
Exactly.
Sokka's not making any jokes. Aang's like edgy right now in his Sasuke phase. And then Katara is supposed to be Katara, so it's like there's nobody to like break tension or anything.
Like it literally looks like there's someone below the screen that's sawing off his dick with a rusty cleaver, and he's trying his best to ignore it and play it off and still deliver his lines.
Happened to me. The Fire Nation is up to something. I have to go back now.
We'll come with you.
I could take you back to the village.
We're going with you.
You know what this feels like? You know what this feels like? This feels like watching. This is like it feels like watching a little kid like play with action figures and like give them dialogue and like shake them at each other and make them talk. That's what it feels like.
That's such a good analogy. Yeah, it is.
It's like watching a little kid play with action figures and make them talk.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. I have to stop them. We're gonna go with you. All right, let's go. Oh, like, you know what I mean?
I know that Aang's acting is really bad here, but let's just take a look at the lines that he had to say. I really don't think there's any way to make this sound good. Now, one thing that Aang could have did was put a bit more inflection in his voice, but in his defense, look at this. Imagine if M. Night Shyamalan came up to you and gave you this and was like, here's your lines for this scene. It's so stiff. No person talks like this. Like, I can't even make this sound like, thanks for bringing Appa to me. The Fire Nation is up to something. I have to go back now. I can take you back to the village. That's the best I can do, really. I mean, I'm not like some voice actor or something, but I don't even really know how to make that sound like a human is speaking. Like, seriously, I want you to pause this video and try to seriously say this and make it sound believable, like a human being is speaking. You can't, because it's not something a human being would say. It's just too stiff. As Aang escapes and flies away from Zuko's ship, Iro gives Zuko some advice, but for some reason uses this ancient Proverbs accent. Your destinies are tied, Prince Zuko. You must preserve your honor. When he is just like some Middle Eastern guy. like, why do you have a Japanese accent? Like why?
Your destinies are tied, Zuko.
Your destinies are tied, Zuko. That you can be sure
That
of.
you can be sure of. Like he's saying it like he's Sun Tzu or something.
Yeah.
Know your enemy.
You can be sure.
Nobody else does. It's just you.
The wisdom of tomorrow lies within the purchase of $12.99. some bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, for your wisdom, death, you can be sure. Like the accent he switches on. That was Iroh speaking, right?
Yeah.
Dude, he doesn't see. He's not Asian. He doesn't. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense.
Work,
like
it doesn't make sense. It's like he's trying to make an impression of Yoru.
Wisdom. Yeah, he wants to be Yoru.
I'll handle this.
I'll handle this.
I'm Yoru.
So Aang decides to introduce his new friends to his old friends back at the Northern Air Temple, but he doesn't know that all of the airbenders were killed and that he's the last one. And the reason I know this is because Katara told me.
Aang flew us to his home. He told us how he left there in a storm on Appa and got forced into the ocean where they almost drowned. Aang airbended a sphere around them and ice formed, and he couldn't remember anything after that.
But did you forget to film it or something?
So the Aang gang show up at the Southern Air Temple, and Aang walks around looking for his teacher named Monk Gyatso, but he doesn't quite realize that all of them were killed over 100 years ago. Eventually he finds Monk Gyatso's body still wearing a necklace that he made for him, and I think I'm just gonna let this one play out.
This is Monk Gyatso's. I made it for him.
He was just a black guy.
Nigga's black. I'm sorry, it's hilarious.
He was just a black nigga.
It's a black nigga.
Oh
My nigga, what the fuck, bro? Monkey out.
This nigga Monk Gyatso. He's just like some black nigga from down the street.
What?
Bro, he gave him that. He was like, "Hey, yo, thanks, my nigga."
Appreciate you, gang.
Oh my god! Appreciate you. Did they just cast like whoever? Like, I don't understand.
Like, you get what I mean about the race thing. Like, it's like, bro, they just feel off.
Monk Gyatso. Oh my god.
After this, Zuko runs into General Zhao of the Fire Nation military, who is also the wrong race. So they all regroup and have a quick meeting where Zhao explains that Zuko was banished from the Fire Nation until he captures the Avatar and restores his honor. But there's a few things about this scene that are pretty odd.
Wow, alright, I guess the Fire Nation's in India or something.
Like all of them.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
And they all have the same hairstyle.
Yeah, they do.
They all have the same hairstyle.
It's like a mandatory hairstyle. But why does Uncle Iroh get to have dreadlocks? And why is he white? Is he like, he adopted or?
Are they just mandated to have these sideburns? What is this? Look at this.
Now, Zhao serves no purpose in this story besides being an exposition dump to the audience by telling characters things that they already fucking know. Notice that sometimes he'll start his sentences with, "as you know." When have you ever talked to somebody and said, "as you know"? You haven't, because if you were to start a sentence by saying "as you know," you would be telling them something that they already know. How is this movie still having things that it needs to exposit to me? How do I not know everything I need to know about this world and the characters by now? With the text walls and Katara giving exposition and then Katara narrating over the story, how do we need even more exposition? After Zhao is done telling the Fire Nation soldiers things that they already know, Zuko frustratedly steps out of the meeting and opens up a piece of paper in his pocket that has a picture of him and his family on it. But the thing is that the picture of him and his family is the correct race, and he is not.
So in the picture he has of his family, they're all Chinese, but these
really? Really? Let me see. They are.
Like, who is this supposed to be? Like, none of them look like you. Who painted this? This isn't even you guys. What the fuck is this supposed to be? Is this like your body double? Who the fuck are these people?
Oh my god.
None of them look like him.
They don't look like him. That's him. That's him.
Yeah, who doesn't look like shit at all? Nigga, that's a little Chinese boy. Who the fuck is that supposed to be?
So we cut back to the Aang gang, and I guess they're just wandering aimlessly now. I'm not really sure what they're doing, because Aang brought them to the Airbender tribe, and everyone there was dead, so I guess they kind of just dispersed after that. I mean, they don't really have a goal yet, so they're just walking around. When this kid runs out from the bushes, and a Fire Nation soldier runs after him. So the Aang gang tried to protect the kid, but the soldier says that he's being arrested because he was earthbending rocks at them.
That child is being arrested.
For what?
He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
What? Oh my god.
So they try to fight the soldiers but lose and are taken captive and brought to this earthbender village. And this village is completely under control by the Fire Nation. So everybody is basically on a house arrest in this village and they're not allowed to earthbend or anything. So Aang thinks this is pretty dumb and tries to give some type of inspirational speech to the rest of the earthbenders. M. Night Shyamalan actually just ripped this straight out of an episode from the show where all of the earthbenders earthbenders are imprisoned and they're not allowed to earthbend or anything. But there it actually made sense because they were out on this giant metal oil rig type of thing in the middle of the ocean with no rocks or anything. So even if they wanted to bend, they couldn't. But I guess Shyamalan wanted Aang to give these earthbenders some inspirational talk so that they come to their senses and want to fight against the Fire Nation, but didn't want to do the original idea because it would cost too much money. So he just put them into this village with earth and rocks all around them and just said that they're in a bad mood or like depressed or something, and that's why they're not bending.
You are powerful and amazing people. You don't even live like this.
They're like right there. Like I just...
If the Avatar had returned, would that mean anything to you?
Avatar
Ew.
is dead. If he was here, he would protect us.
Oh my god, this is so bad.
And I'm the Avatar.
So after he's done with his speech, Katara runs up and pushes one of the guards. And when he goes to try to push her back, Aang just pushes him off screen with his airbending. And then does whatever the fuck that is. I don't fucking know. And Sokka, instead of hitting this guy right here, since they're fighting them now, he just pushes him out of the way so that he can get into the fight circle. Wow. So the earthbenders start fighting the firebenders, and a bunch of them all work together to bend some earth, and they're all doing these martial arts techniques in unison, and it looks pretty cool, to be honest, until you see that they're doing all of this just to lift a rock that I could probably just pick up with one arm. How does it take so much effort to do this stuff? Why do they have to do 700 million different dances and techniques and backflips and front flips and kick flips to be able to just move one rock?
They do
all that for that little rock? Oh my god! It took like 6 of them! Oh my god! What the fuck? It takes like 6 guys to do all that in unison together to take a pebble. He could have just, one guy could have just lifted it by himself and threw it. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And this guy too, it took all of them to move this.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! It took all of them together to move one rock. And they're all waiting for their turn to fight. Isn't that so polite?
Yeah.
Isn't that so polite?
They're waiting.
Look, she's just standing there watching. They're waiting for their turn to fight. Alright, now it's Sokka's turn. Now these guys just stand there and do nothing. He stands there and does nothing. Alright, now it's Aang's turn, so Sokka stops everything he's doing. Wow, they're so nice to each other. Like, they take turns.
So after the 50+ Fire Nation soldiers run away in fear because 6 men threw one stone at them and another guy threw a boomerang at one of them, the Aang gang decides to keep traveling to other Earth Kingdom villages to free them from the Fire Nation, which makes no sense at all because can't they just go back and recapture the villages that you aren't at anymore? Like, you should be making 0 progress. In one of these villages, they find a waterbending scroll that has a bunch of waterbending techniques on it. I don't know why the Fire Nation didn't just burn this thing. You think somebody would have just went woof to all of these scrolls and destroyed all of them. In the actual show, this was way more interesting. 10+ years since I watched this show, and I still remember high-risk trading. You guys remember high-risk trading? like you guys remember that? In the original show, there was an entire episode that was basically about this scroll. Remember, the scroll was way too expensive for them to buy, so Aang tried to negotiate with the shopkeeper with like $2 or something like that.
Let's say to the price of 1 copper piece. Okay, 2 copper pieces.
The fact I still remember these scenes after 10+ years is insane. And what's even more insane is that Shyamalan saw this entire episode that centered around this scroll and how interesting and funny it was, and decided, well, I'm gonna do it my way. Instead of Katara stealing the scroll from a greedy pirate businessman who then tries to steal it back while Zuko and Aro are chasing them, and then it turns into this 3-way chase fight. I'm just gonna have this guy open up a cabinet and take it out and be like, here, it's yours now. Why the fuck do they even have that anyway? What use would they have for this? They're earthbenders. In the actual show, it made sense because they bought it from a man who obviously steals these things from other people and resells them to make a profit. But here, it's like, how the fuck did this get here? Was some, like, waterbenders staying the night here and forgot it? Like what the fuck? So Team Avatar look at the scroll and see all of the waterbending techniques, and then decide that they're gonna free even more villages, get Aang to learn the other 3 elements, and then kill the Fire Lord. Just because. Just because. Why not, I guess.
Villages in this part of the Earth Kingdom are occupied by the Fire Nation, like this village was. They prey on the weakest towns and villages. We should go visit some of these towns, Ang.
I need to tell you something.
What is it, Ang?
Why are they so close to them? Oh my god.
Dude, that's what I mean. Like with the shots.
Fucking
with the
back
shots,
up.
they're just so close all the time. Like they're always zoomed in on their mouth and their face.
So, what if we found you teachers? Teachers to teach you bending. Which element would you have to learn first?
Water.
What if we found you teachers to teach you?
Teachers to teach you.
What if we found you teachers to teach you?
Whenever Sokka speaks in this movie, he just sounds like some kind of schizophrenic that's just repeating whatever some demon or like some DMT elf is saying into his ear.
And maybe we can stop in the villages on the way. Start a change in the war in these small villages.
Start a change in the war in these small villages. Like, dude, relax. But again, it's not all his fault, even though the acting is bad. This one is also broken down to the core. Here's another one for you guys to try. Pause the video and try to say this and make it sound like a human is speaking. And maybe we can stop in the villages along the way. Start a change in the war in those small villages. Should we try it? Like, you try it. I bet you can't make this sound like a human being is speaking. That's how bad the actual script is. I wonder he looks like he's having liver failure all the time. He's trying to think of how he can say these lines and not get laughed at for it. After that, we cut back to Zuko and Iroh. Iroh. Hanging out in this restaurant. And Iroh tells Zuckerberg that he should stop his quest for hunting the Avatar and just settle down and relax.
Fucking hoodie. Is Obi-Wan Kenobi now? Like, what the...
So Zuko, in an attempt to remind Iroh why this quest is so important to him, points at some random kid sitting across from them and gestures for him to come over. And then when he does, he asks him about the origins of Prince Zuko, to where he just gives an entire expository monologue.
Prince Zuko was sentenced to an Agni Ki duel.
Ki? In the thing it says Kai. It says Kai.
Only one way to resolve this. Agni Kai. A fire duel. That's right.
Pronounce it to fuck with you? It's been so many things so far.
Agni Ki duel. Agni Kai.
Agni Ki. Avatar.
Iroh.
Everything
Sokka.
is pronounced. Is it like to fuck with people? Like, I don't get it. Such a lazy way to expose his backstory. Like, do I...
Hey, you! Come here! You!
Come here.
Get over here!
What is my backstory?
Explain my backstory, yeah! What is my
Yeah,
backstory?
to the audience. Alright, good. The uncle, that's why. Anyway, moving on.
Later in the movie, Aang and his friends go to the Northern Air Temple to look for more airbenders. Remember how interesting this was in the actual show? Remember when they went to the Northern Air Temple, it was being settled in by all of these people who were like these crazy steampunk inventors and had all of these flying wings and stuff, and like all of these cool inventions and contraptions, and then they had to fight the Fire Nation with all of these like bombs and stuff. Remember how interesting that was? Well, M. Night Shyamalan didn't think it was very interesting because he gutted all of that and replaced it with this old guy. It turns out that this guy is a sellout because he actually lured Aang here so that the Fire Nation could capture him. So they arrest him and bring him back to the Fire Nation and lock him up. And later he gets freed by somebody named the Blue Spirit, which is just Zuko, who is in a mask disguising himself because he wants to free Aang so that he can be able to capture him so that he can regain his honor. So they both run outside while they're getting chased by a bunch of Fire Nation soldiers, and they do what I like to call the Arkham City effect, which means means only 2 guys are allowed to fight them at a time, and all of the other guys, which there's like 200 of, by the way, just all stand around them and wait for their turn. Like, why don't you just all fight him at the same time? Like, do they have to enter a queue to be able to fight Aang and Zuko? Like, what the fuck? Is it like Battlefield 4 where you just need like the premium edition to skip the queue? Like, are these all premium users and just the rest of them are waiting in queue for their turn?
Just slow-mo, like it's the coolest fucking thing ever. I can't watch somebody get pushed off screen by Aang's airbending anymore. Every time he pushes somebody off screen with his airbending, it makes me want to kill myself.
So after all of the bullet time slow-mo shenanigans, they escape from this Fire Nation military fort or something over this super long bridge. And then Aang uses his airbending to move a cloud from the sky down to where they are so that it can obscure them as they run away. The thing is that they already have so much distance between them and the rest of the soldiers across the whole bridge that they could have just kept running into the forest. He didn't need to waste his time taking a cloud out of the sky and putting it there. What is a cloud really going to do anyway? They can just run through the cloud into the only direction that you could have gone, which is into this forest. If anything, it would have been better for them to just keep running instead of stop for like a minute to cast this cloud and then turn around and keep running anyway.
Who's bending the clouds? Who's doing this to me? Don't mildly inconvenience us. Don't do that.
They're gone. Wow. Because they stood there for 30 seconds before leaving the bridge.
Why did he need to bend the clouds to do that? He could have just did it anyway.
That's right away.
It took him more time to do it. It just ran away.
Yeah. He could have just ran away.
They didn't find him anyway. What did it matter? Look at it. Why did he do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what's so bad? He could have just
So around this point was when I was just like, fuck it, and started just fast forwarding throughout the movie to kind of just get the gist of it. So I can't really give you a blow by blow of everything that happened after this point because this is where I just stopped caring. But I did find this funny part where I guess Aang got like a headache or something, or I don't know.
What the fuck? My right temple! Ow! My right temple!
Funny bone! Ow!
Ow! My hairline! It hurts! Like
yeah. Ow!
Ow!
Mild discomfort. Mild discomfort.
Mild discomfort. One of the hairs is going back. Fuck.
The tattoo.
Oh no. No, one of the hair follicles. It's growing again.
Super Saiyan.
And yeah, that's the movie. That's The Last Airbender. That was definitely an experience. Alright, so putting this into the bad movies tier list was a little bit of a challenge. There is a lot of horrible movies on here. But after discussing this with the council, I think I'm gonna put The Last Airbender under Suicide Squad in the unwatchable tier because I don't really think it's as bad as Madam Web. I'd rather watch this movie than watch like a 5'6" black Spider-Man drive a Corvette from 2006 across a fictional town in New Jersey to beat up teenage girls. Then watch Sokka say, we can find teachers to teach you teaching. But yeah, man, the bad movies tier list, it's filling up. I can't wait until the end of the year when we take a look back at this thing and get PTSD. Alright guys, we're back and I had one more question for Zero before we end this episode. Why exactly was it that you changed all of the pronunciation for the names of the characters in this movie? Well, what happened was tomorrow I was drinking a sandwich with my grandfather, rest in peace. My girlfriend told me that my wife went missing, so I started reading this movie that said, "He who asks is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who does not remains a fool forever." And that inspired me a lot. Now keep in mind, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You know, and they don't really want you to know this, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So in Batman Arkham City, there's this one scene where you're in this courthouse with Catwoman, and there's like a sniper that shoots through this window. So you figure out that it comes from this clock tower from the sniper that's being controlled remotely by the Joker, you know, because they say that two birds of a feather flock together. But the last time I went to Best Buy looking for a computer, I couldn't really find anything, but you know, a trouble shared is a trouble had.